You're speeding.
Speeding?
How's your hair?
Very good.
Okay.
Speeding with what?
Means recording in film terms.
Okay. So do you have your reasons of what is disadvantages? Because I have mine. So will you add to mine? Because I have anecdotes of what happened.
I don't see any disadvantages for marrying you.
Aww.
But you have a long list of disadvantages for marrying me.
I do.
That's it. I'm leaving.
Disadvantages of marrying a foreigner. Yes, there are some. Let's get into it.
Also, I want to point out that the reason for this podcast is this is a term that people search for a lot, that people look for online. Mm-hmm. So we're finding questions that people are asking and answering them. Yeah. Not that we're like, oh my gosh,
this was like regretting.
Are you regretting?
No.
Do you have any regret?
No.
You sure?
About like my dress and like wedding and how I should have been more prepared and like how I cannot meet my parents and stuff. Yes, but
would you have gotten married in India this time instead of the US first?
Yes.
Let's talk about communication style. What is the disadvantage of marrying a foreigner when it comes to communication styles?
I have to start with, I don't even know where to look more, here or there. For my YouTube, maybe there more. Or here
you can
more.
both look. I mean, you can look wherever you want. I'm looking at you because this is your show and you're a hottie.
I'm a hottie. Look at that. My husband giving compliments. Now, Indian husband would never do that. Let me just start with an advantage right there. Right? So that's amazing. He gives me compliments all the time. But communication styles. But this is what Americans do. They're so polite and they're so nice. And that's how our communication style is so different that our parents would never say anything nice. And if they're not saying nice and, by actions, they're telling you, oh, you've done something right. John is used to saying lot of nice things. And when he says those nice things, it suddenly puts you in a place that, one, is it insincere? Two, you're just saying it because you're used to saying a lot of nice things that even if you hate somebody, you're like, thank you for your time and whatever. Indians are, I think, a little bit more transparent. You can tell. And thirdly, so I have this story. So there was this time when we were dating and I remember he was over to my house and I did something. I maybe made him breakfast or like did dishes or something like that. And he turned around and he was like, thank you so much for making breakfast for me. And I remembered like kind of freezing in that second and being like, wow, like maybe we're not as close as I think we are, because here's this guy that I think I'm in love with. It is in love with me and we've been in a relationship for more than a year, definitely, is saying thank you to me for doing some of the most basic anal things, right? Like, it's one thing to be like, it was so nice you did it for me, but it's another thing when somebody's constantly saying thank you for doing things. And a part of me was like, if I won't do it, then who would? Like, that's our culture. But I don't think for him it was that thing. I think the other so, all those things definitely make you feel like, where are you in the relationship? Like, are you close? Are you not close?
But is this a foreigner or is this just a person?
I think it's a foreign thing. Like in India, we have a thing where we say, aren't you my sister? Like for friends, we will not let them say thank you. Like you can't even believe how many conversations will go on and on because we will be like, you cannot thank me. Or people will get offended. Like, really, are you going to say thank you to me? Like my own friends would be like, really, don't even bother saying it now. Because they're like, our relationship is so much more that you shouldn't be even mentioning it. Of course, we'll try and say it and we'll push and shove a thank you in. But people would be like, how dare you say thank you to us? So all of those things are like very cultural. And like in America, everything has to be super nice and yes, and of course, and all of that. And also, you guys are not direct. And I want to be vague about this story, but I remember somebody was trying to tell me how I'm not invited to something. And it took me like one whole day to figure out that I'm not invited. Like when they're telling me so indirectly and like how there's just so much happening and, so much pressure. And I'm like, yeah, of course, makes so much time, like so much sense. My mom used to go through this, like she's not spent any time with herself, with her kids. So I get where you're coming from. And then the person moves on to the next point and they're like, yeah, and that is why maybe you. And I'm like, and then like I'm just unsettled. I haven't still understood. They value time here, like with their kids and like those special moments. Like I don't think my family or like a lot of Indians are like about, can I cherish this moment with my child? They're all about who can we bring? Who can we invite? And that's going to be special. And sometimes that is a problem in Indian culture because we forget what is important. My mother has barely been present in special moments or in good moments because she's been like in the kitchen and busy and like kind of fending for people and not spending quality time with us. Quality time, that's the word I was looking for. So I think that's also a cultural difference. But for us, if I tell my mother like have quality time with us and don't call people, she'll be like, you crazy. So it was like kind of different. And also like they are so indirect. They will not say that, oh, like you're not invited. Like I am so direct as an Indian and I feel like,
Really?
Am I not direct?
No, I feel like when we run into like communication roadblocks,
Yeah.
it's because you are making assumptions of things you want me to know or understand.
Okay.
And I honestly feel like I'm lost.
Okay, so that is another cultural expectation.
Is that a John Gunjan thing? Or is that a cultural thing?
I mean, it could be both. I'm also somebody who expects people to understand. And I think as a culture, we have a lot more understanding. Like if I tell my brother, no, I don't want it, he knows he definitely, and the stronger my no is.
Whoa. There's a good one. Keep going, bud.
The stronger the no, the bigger the reason for him to push me to do this or get this for me. Like same for my parents. If I say, no, I'm good, I don't want anything, like it doesn't matter. They're like, oh, definitely does matter to her. And I think as an Indian, we constantly do those things, right? But we know what is important for people. Like, no, I'm okay, don't get me food. Right? And people will be like, we don't know if you really mean it. So we're going to bring it in front of you and then you can decide whether you want it or not. Right? So I think, again, lot cultural, maybe some Gunjan. And I'm sort of expecting from a lot of basic things. Like I will say no to him and he'll be like, okay, no, she said no. And I'll be like, just think about it. Like, do I want to say right now? Like, or am I being polite? And we let other people decide that. And I think in America, you don't let other people decide what is polite or not to ask for.
Yeah, I mean, no means no. That's the big push.
Exactly. So that no means no is like another ball.
But in India, like, so in business, I feel like no means no. But when it comes to anything personal, family, no does not mean no.
Absolutely not.
And it turns into a fight. Like when you go to a restaurant, who's going to pay turns into a fight. Or like when I'm with your family,
yeah,
I have to start saying no 70% before I'm through with the meal. Because otherwise it'll be considered rude. Oh, do you want any more food? No, I'm done.
I remember my mom once was making so many paranthas for him. And she was like, looks like he's going to keep eating. And I was like, he eats a lot, but I don't think he eats so much. So let me go check. So I came to check on him and I'm like, are you really enjoying this? Like, are you really hungry? What's going on? And he was like, no, I'm stuffed. I want to like stop. And I was like, so say it. Like, just like, you have to be more insistent. But he would say no once. And my mom would say, please try. But this, and she would leave it in the plate and he would be like, okay. And then he would eat it. So then she would be like, oh, if he's eaten this one, then he definitely needs the next one. So then that would come.
But why would I leave food on my plate that I haven't finished?
Exactly. So that's just another thing.
Language barriers.
Language barriers. Oh my God. You don't realize this until you're married and you're in dire situations. I remember dire situations. So of course, because if you're living in a different country, like now I'm living in US, I really miss talking to somebody in my mother tongue. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to say something and that thing will only sound the best when I say it in mother tongue, because that's how I know it. Like, right? Like jhado. And jhado is something that you do when you like sort of swipe just clean the bed, like, I don't know what to say. Like usually
Gunjan eats in the bed, which would be an absolute no-no in my family growing up.
But in my family, my dad does not like it. I don't think it's like a Indian thing. It's a my family
And I don't know
thing.
if this is an American thing, but yeah, it was
it's my family thing. My family enjoys eating we barely use our dining table, only when like guests are out, or like my dad will use it, of course. He insists on sitting on that. We wouldn't follow suit. So every night before going to bed, we have to like, sort of sweep the bed so that there are no crumbs on there. So like every time I have to say something as simple as jhado, it just feels like I have to put an extra effort. And then if you're dying. Like when we had COVID, in January, and I remember this one night, middle of the night, I felt so sick. I was very sick and I felt like I'm going to throw up. My spirit was like leaving my body and I ran to the loo. I couldn't even walk properly and I like fell on the floor and I was on the floor trying to throw up, trying to like think what is what. And at that point, I think he was sleeping and he didn't know I was in the bathroom. And I was like, I want to scream and say, John, idhar aao, or John, come here, like in Hindi, or something in Hindi I wanted to say. But like I was so weak, so disoriented. And at that point in time, I was like, okay, I'm going to think what to say in English and I'm going to tell him. So that was like this one moment that when you're dying and something wants to come out of your mouth, it can't be instant.
Okay.
But it's fine. I'll find my safe words.
What about so maybe point three, number three, or have you covered everything on the language barrier, or is there more?
I mean, if you're talking about also not barrier, but like again, language is like a huge thing that you connect on. Like, and as Indians and Punjabi, and there are like so many these little nuances that you do connect with a lot of people who understand a certain kind of phrases. And I like relate to you guys and the phrases that you use. And every time you use a phrase, it becomes a little more interesting. Your dad does that. He always uses these phrases, and that's what makes normal conversation a little bit more spicy. So
spicy good or spicy bad, or
spicy
what?
good, like because it adds something to
Okay.
a normal sentence. You can, how you say things like just change. So that is definitely there, but also like because of language, or I mean I want to sort of put it in language, is the shows that you watch, the songs that you connect on. There's so much that you have grown up. I think there's so little to connect on. So unless you work really, really hard on that your partner invests enough time knowing about the kind of movies that you see, and the kind of actors that you listen to, or kind of people that you, follow, then they will never realize what references, like half of our references actually fall flat. Right. And I think I've made much more peace now that none of my references are going to work. And we kind of put in a little bit more time when we're giving references, and the other person will like Google and be like, okay, what it is. Okay. All right. And you'll just see it that they didn't really get it. You'll see it that you tried, but it's fine if they didn't get it.
Okay, but yes, you're talking about not having commonality.
Commonality is like
cartoons,
Yeah.
songs, love songs, angry songs.
Right. We
common
don't have
experience.
that.
Do you have prom in India?
We don't have prom in India. We have like a farewell party, but not prom.
Yeah, so you don't have a lot of these common things.
Right. So I like every time you guys will talk about a prom memory, and I'm like, I wore a sari and went to my farewell party, and it was not about having a date. It was about, am I like Miss Farewell, Miss School, Miss 10 on 10, like all of those things. And that's a very different than you guys.
What could I do better to understand more?
This is not our therapy session. This is disadvantages of
This
me.
is therapy?
This is not.
You tricked me?
So don't ask me what you can do better.
What is expected out of a relationship? Or what do you want more? What are you saying? The language, the grammar here is horrible.
All right. That's what happens when you cheat on notes. So the fourth drawback. Let's talk about the fourth drawback. Have said third is nothing common. Second was language barrier. And the first was, communication styles or cultural, background. Fourth is going to be the pressure on the relationship. I feel like...
Pressure? There's pressure on the relationship?
I think when you're marrying or being in a relationship with a partner, with a foreigner, the pressure is different. So one of you will definitely be, like, you are not going to be in your safe space. Like when you were in India, yes, you were building your work, but it wasn't like your space. So I'm sure you might have certain things. And now if I have moved here, you have to constantly, like I have to constantly do more for you in the relationship. Do more as in I have to value our relationship more than my parents, and like give up on time with them or my career or those kind of things. And you have to deal with a partner who has given up a lot and ask for enough in return. So for that balance to be in the relationship, that, hey, if I'm doing so much, how much will you do? There's too much asked in a interracial marriage than it is asked for in a normal marriage.
Okay. I think when you talk about language, for me, the big issue or a big question I feel like we run into frequently is this a communication thing where you're trained not to ask, or why? Like, for me, I like everything spelled out. And I feel like I assume when things are spelled out, how do I respond?
Right. And I think it's so hard. I think that is, actually, I have to I have to say this. One of the biggest challenges of our relationship was because we got married and in such because nothing was
The biggest challenge to our relationship is that we got married?
No, we got married without any planning, without having spoken about it, without having understanding what day to day is going to be. So a lot of things that I needed in the relationship, I had to first work on how to ask for them because I was like, there is no way he's going to know that I need them.
Can I tell a story?
Yeah.
So one thing that still just blows my mind.
Huh.
I mean, I'm a fairly independent person.
Huh.
And I don't feel like I don't think I've been trained to have cultural constraints.
Huh.
But I remember one time we were going to my little sister's house.
Yeah.
And you said, John, I'm very thirsty. I would like you to ask your sister for a glass of water for me.
Yeah.
And to me, that still just kind of rocks my brain because I'm like, it's water. Just ask her or go get it yourself. One of the two, right?
Yeah, go get yourself. We never, that's the thing, right? In India, nothing is ever asked for. Asking is impolite. And, so the other person has to realize, could you be thirsty? Could you be hungry? And the other person is going to say no. So you have to ask 2-3 times, or you have to present them with a glass of water. And the other person is constantly going to try to not inconvenience you, to be like, no, I don't want water. No, I don't want whatever. But I get it. At some point, I have to become homely enough or have to feel...
Homely?
I have to feel
Welcome?
familiar.
Accepted?
Yeah, I have to feel their house. Wrong word. I have to feel like it is my home. But again, if I go to my cousin's house, let's say even cousin, not brother's house, she would show me things. She would tell me what is where and what are the, if the in-laws have a problem with something, or, my mother-in-law doesn't like when I do that, so you don't touch that, but everything else, you have it, or stuff like that. But here, nobody takes you through those things. They're just oh, it's, come to the kitchen, help yourself. What is help yourself? For us, so sometimes my parents, if we have guests, and my parents don't have lunch, but if we have guests over, they will make sure that there is lunch made. And they're like, oh, we can't deal with 3 meals. But they will make 3 meals. They will serve. They will actually serve them before time, an hour before, because they're also constantly jittery that the other person is not going to ask us, but we'll just keep it ready, or we'll just have it, or we'll tell enough number of times and being oh, it's ready. And a lot of times I think I had to stop my parents from saying something over and over again. And then you got accustomed that they ask for things again. So you stopped asking for things. And there were times when you would be like, I'm hungry, but I don't know who to ask. So you've gone through the same thing.
I think for me, so it's very different because in the US we have a ton of food in our fridges and we've got snacks.
Freezers, yeah.
And when I go to India, when I'm at your parents' house, I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this. I don't feel comfortable just taking one of the 10 items in the fridge.
Yeah, because the 10 is a lot. Because
so what I started doing is going out and buying things I knew I had bought that we can then share, and I'm like, hey, I know I can come and grab this. At least I assume I can. Can I?
Yeah, you can grab even the things, but of course, like I said, so the concept of India is that we don't do a lot of sandwiches. Some houses do, some people who live alone do. But even in my Mumbai house, you never found enough snacks and stuff because we were constantly on diet, or maid was coming in cooking fresh meals.
Constantly on a diet?
What I was trying to be.
I just felt like a lot of times we would go out to eat because in India it's cheaper typically than the US.
That's also true. If you want to eat something really nice, then, we have to buy a lot of things here and freeze them in America. And that's very different again. So you guys have huge freezer spaces. You buy things in bulk. We need Pepsi or Coke. We get a bottle. But now my parents, of course, have
We're here, we get a 36 pack.
Exactly. They'll keep 1 2 liter or 4 of them, but 3 will be somewhere else in a suitcase, which have to be taken out every time we're done with one. And fresh meals are on the go, or fruits are there, or nuts are there. And that's the snacks people in India eat. They're not eating. And your snacks are different because you're constantly in different time zone. So yeah. Yes.
Any other disadvantages for marrying a foreigner?
Yeah. Fifth is definitely going to be the legalities because, of course, if somebody is from a different country, legal things come in place, which don't play a role when you are somebody from the same country.
6 is time away from family. I think most people that marry a foreigner, it's pretty much you're committing to see your family once every 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah. Something like that. So one of the parties has to give up on seeing their family. that would be a disadvantage too. So you have to make peace with that, or 7
Luckily for you, I go to India. I've been to India 27 times, so the pattern's been established.
That is the only reason I even was comfortable with this
The
relation.
only reason?
Yeah, because it was.
Not because of my charm or
It's
my
a
looks?
huge deal for me to be not away from my parents, and with you, it didn't mean that I would have to settle. Like one of the, like the silver linings of this relationship was that you travel so much and you need to travel so much, and now we need to travel so much to India for work that I will not. Hopefully, once immigration is figured out, I can constantly see my parents. And a part of me hopes more than I could see them when I was in Mumbai, So let's see what happens.
Every other month. Cholo.
Chalo. But if you would have said, dude, I'm going to be settled here and you move here, that's an absolute no for me. An absolute no. I can't do that. I mean, a lot of people
You
can
paused
do that.
like there was a question in your mind if that was happening.
No, I wanted to add something more, but I was like, maybe not. Like, the fact that even that I have to wait 2 years now is like, for me, 6s. Like, not 6s, it's like a question, like hanging on my head. Like, am I going to be okay with it? Like, is this going to be what I can make peace with? That 2 years of maybe not seeing my parents, but like hoping that they can come see me. But then after 2 years, I get the flexibility of constantly going and visiting them and, having India and US both as base. So I was never okay with that. But even if you're not okay with that, and even if your husband has a business in India, you still will be stuck in a country because legalities are so complicated. Okay, awesome. I think on that note, 6 disadvantages of marrying, dating a foreigner.
Awesome.
Awesome.
We'll go to goofoman.com/subscribe if you want to pay attention to know where our YouTube is or where her Instagram is or. All right.